Good tidings, adventurers. I'm Justin the Wizard. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach, and I'm bringing you season two, episode one of the Fairly Magical podcast. First, we're going to open up with a mindfulness exercise that is, as always, optional. If you would like to participate, we invite you to do so at the level of your comfort, and we understand for those that choose not to participate, as this can be a very personal experience. For those participating, here we go. I invite you to visualize with me the space that you are in, the room, if you're outside. What kind of space is it? The quad on a college campus, an open field, a pathway through the woods. Expand your visualization from where you are to those rooms and areas around that still touch wherever you are. There are people there. There are maybe animals there, plants, fungi, certainly bacteria. As you zoom out to the wider region that holds you right now, visualize even more of your community, even more of nature. And as you do, remember that we all have but one pale blue dot to share and call home together. So as you draw your boundaries between these different spaces at different ranges, remember to share. Remember to love your neighbors. And welcome to this episode of a Fairly Magical podcast. Again, I'm Justin the Wizard, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. I'm joined today by my co-host, Elena Lunt, as well as Coach Lee Hopkins. Coach Lee is dope AF, okay? We are excited as hell to have Coach Lee here, and we'll get to that. First, though, we're going to consult the cards.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I blew through all of my decks in the first season that are appropriate for this format. So we are reusing from last season. We've got the Mushroom Spirit Oracle by Nicola McIntosh. I just love this one so much. The little mushrooms speak to me, and the backs of the cards are so pretty. Okay.
I like it.
We're going to shuffle. Put our intentions into the cards. What are they going to give us? Ooh, we've got an oyster mushroom representing regeneration. And we have, I feel like we had this one last time too, the lion's mane.
We did. Lion's
there
mane
it is.
showed up again.
Yeah, representing calm.
Mm.
And our last one is the Scarlet Elf Cup for healing. Did we have that one last time too?
Yeah, that was also those two like us.
Okay, that's really
Oh,
interesting. And yet
nice.
your new favorite mushroom didn't come up this
Didn't come back
time.
again. Yeah. That's okay. Oysters are delicious. Those mushrooms are
Yeah,
absolutely
oyster
super
mushrooms
tasty.
and lion's mane. I love both
Uh,
of those.
Scarlet Elf was healing, right?
Yes.
Well, we certainly have a podcast that covers the topics of regeneration, calm, and healing. But I don't know that that's
Yeah.
exactly the topic of the day. We'll maybe
No,
integrate that a
yeah,
little bit.
Yeah, it
Uh,
certainly ties
for sure.
in.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
so, Coach Lee, welcome. Do you want to introduce
Hi.
yourself a little bit?
Hi, I'm Coach Lee. Thank you so much for having me. I am a social coach for ADHD folks, and if you want to connect but get stuck in your head, I help with that. So I love to bring together people to create more meaningful connections and relationships.
Oh, I love that so much. Well, one of my kids
Th-
is ADHD and has trouble making friends sometimes. So that's so sweet. I love that things like that exist for when they're older and
Yeah.
might need that.
Well, I am here if he does, I suppose. I'll be 80 something, maybe.
Yeah.
But certainly it was a struggle to actually connect with people with no one like me in the
Mhm.
past. And so it was maybe your kiddo's age and not having any idea of what I was doing to disconnect from other people. And it was hard. And it still is kind of hard as an adult. You face a whole new set of challenges. So that's why I guess I exist is because I want to help other people feel more connected who are, maybe speak the way I do or think the way I do and
Mhm.
struggle with that meaningful connection.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I've
Yeah,
identified a lot with the way Coach Lee just operates and does all of his various uh,
things. Oh yeah.
things. Yeah, I'm involved. You'll see me at Coach Lee's things from time to time, and so I'm very pleased to be a part of that. Um, and I think we came into this, sort of planning to talk about the topic specifically of boundaries. And so, um, do you still feel like you want to talk about that today, Coach, or do you want to maybe let the cards take us a different direction
The cards can
and
take us
spur of the moment?
somewhere. I, yeah, I enjoy that. The cards can take us somewhere, kind of like how you let like fungi kind of grow in their space and they just kind of go around and they create a path. So, all right, I'm gonna follow the little slime mold and see what it does. It's like, right. I think it'd be interesting and fun. Especially
Follow the
since you two,
fungus.
yeah, especially since you two have gotten those two cards before. It's like, well, what are they gonna say? Something a little different, or
Yeah.
yeah. So let's see.
So it was
Yeah.
Discovery was the card that we didn't get this time that we got last time was
Yeah.
a blue mushroom known for discovery. It's a new discovery in Australia. They found this rare mushroom there that
Oh,
was featured on that other card that we didn't get. This time we got regeneration, but the common two were calm and
Mhm.
healing.
mm,
And since we have
ah,
a mindfulness exercise built into pretty much every episode, except for the very first episode where we didn't think to do it yet, um,
mm,
the the calm that we set as an intention at the beginning of every episode has really been a big theme here on this podcast and in terms of what we do. And I think one of the things that strikes me about your work, Coach, is the sense of calm that comes with a community that understands each other better.
yeah. Um, I think that when you don't have to use words to describe what you are feeling and experiencing, there's just a nice vibe that goes along with it. Like, I think for many neurodivergent folks, there are experiences that we struggle to find the words for because the world, the neurotypical world, hasn't used those words to describe our experiences because they don't know of our experiences. And so being able to just kind of know what it means to have to take a break without, getting judged or like having to explain or express why. It's like, yeah, that's very calming. I don't have to figure out what words I need to explain the challenge that I'm having so that you understand to further help you um believe that I need this break. So defending myself essentially, like I don't have to do that. This other person who is living a life like I am, they get it. They get me. And it just feels a lot safer to be around people who get you, period, I think. And so that extra having to explain, figure out the words to explain, and will they believe me if I explain to them, that just goes away when you have people who understand. It's a calming feeling that, I continuously look for in other people. And when I get it, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say it was
Yeah.
at your social connection summit where I learned about we made a whole episode basically about vast variable attention stimulus trait as the descriptor of the ADHD experience, kind of replacing the diagnostic label ADHD with this experiential label was kind of my
Yeah.
takeaway. And I looked into the author's work a little bit further, and the author described something which we made another episode about, which was um, rejection sensitive dysphoria and, uh, oh boy, uh, recognition responsive euphoria, RRE, right? And so what you're
Yeah.
talking about, it's impossible for me to hear it, especially in this context and on this podcast, and not kind of bring up those things that we've talked about before as
Mm.
kind of excellent reframes of the experience and the way that meaningful community, meaningful connection makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It also sounds a little bit like when we did our queer episode and talked about how finding that community and being with the people who get it and get your experience feels good, feels safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's all
absolutely.
interrelated.
I'm curious about, I mean, I haven't heard the terms that you described, the euphoric thing, but I'm like, oh, that's a really great way to describe it. Like, oh, you really get me. I will never forget. As this happened, the first time I really felt validated and understood was in therapy.
Mm.
In therapy, I I remember
Better there than
going
nowhere.
better there than nowhere. This is some years ago, and it was like
Mhm.
I'm I'm 43 years old, and this is probably maybe I don't know, 10 years ago when I first felt validated, like a deep validation, like somebody was actually listening to me and understanding what I was saying and not gonna blame me. So I'd gone to the therapist because my partner had told me I needed to because I laugh at it now, but I was totally serious. She said I just am the problem. And I believed it. I had no sense of self. And I was like, yeah, well, I guess I am. So let me go to a therapist. And I would say they're right, though, because I got all the healing that I needed there and the validation. And then I knew what it felt like to be validated. So I couldn't go back to a relationship that didn't. So they were right. I needed therapy. I'm the problem because I'm staying in this relationship. All right, thanks. This is how I like also reframe a lot of things. Like, yeah, everything people say to me is a bit of a gift, and I get to use it some way. Bit of a tangent, but it's euphoric when people understand you. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that one experience. I was 30 something.
Wow.
I was similar 30 something having similar revelations about a similar experience of my own and being told that I needed to work on myself in counseling. And yeah, I worked on myself in counseling and realized that I didn't need to do that other person's work.
There we go. Boundaries.
It comes back
That's
to it.
interesting. Yeah.
Boundaries are a healing thing. Boundaries create calm, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Boundaries are the space within you can regenerate. So, and the the reading that we got is actually, the more I think about it, it's actually pretty good. The um, the nature of a strong boundary is a protected area.
Yeah. I think about boundaries as, a gift to everyone. So I have this mindset, this concept that I believe that everyone who says something to me is something that's useful to me and it's for my benefit. Just walk around believing that, whether they're screaming at me, well, I just kind of know that, all right, it's good information. Know that I don't want to be around you. It's good information. So
You learn something either way.
I learned something right there. Thank you so much. Get out of my face. But when it comes to boundaries, I really believe that it is for the other person's benefit that I create my own boundaries so that they're not relying on me or believing there's something that I can do for them instead of building a community with other people. And what I mean by this is essentially if I was their only connection and I was doing everything for them and I would burn myself out to try and help and support them, I would actually one day burn out. And they would actually one day really need me to pick up the phone or really need me to be there, and I just can't. And because I didn't set any boundaries to let them know that I'm not available, I didn't take care of myself when I needed to, they relied on me heavily. And so, since they relied on me heavily, this one scenario, they didn't actually go build community or get support in ways that they needed. So I think the sooner I let people know that I can't help them, it could be one specific task or whatever it is that I can't do for them. The sooner I let them know that I can't do this, the better a relationship will be. So they can go find the other person to help and support them with that. Because it's not a know everything. It's just, look, I can't get you at 2 o'clock in the morning from the airport. I can't come pick you up from the bar every weekend. I need sleep. It's not know everything. It's just here are specific boundaries that I'm setting. And I think it's really key to be able to tell people, especially the ones you want, the relationships you want to keep, that you can't or you won't. Either or, but just making sure that you remember that. Well, I tell myself this to remember that my relationship won't survive if I can't say no.
That's kind of true about any relationship.
Yeah, yeah, any it's hard too because I think also for me it's like I really want to. I'm I'm gonna do it. I really want to help and you know I have to remember that what I just said to you all to myself like hey guy you can't go and helping even though you really like this person you really want to help them you can't because you'll be tired your relationship will fall apart yeah
I'm gonna have to start remembering this more often. I'm getting better with a lot of effort, but I'm terrible at setting boundaries.
it's hard though I mean especially if there's people that you care about so you said you're getting better that's fantastic I also think that boundaries can be a nebulous thing like what is boundary
Yeah.
what is that set because um when I first learned about boundaries. I think it was in my like 20s, late 20s or something. Mid 20s, I was getting taken advantage of a lot. I would go on these dates with these women that I'd find on Craigslist. Now, I know that sounds so wild. But back in the day, Craigslist had a little
That
dating thing, and it
actually,
was
that
like,
the
Yeah.
timing
Oh,
of
yeah.
that actually lines up right.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, with
it,
what with
Yeah.
everything you've said, I'm totally cool with this. It makes sense.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
So
and
that
They
just
were
like,
time,
wild times.
yeah,
mhm.
just meeting
Yeah.
people. But
Yeah.
I would take them out to like the Cheesecake Factory and things like that for a lunch or a date. I would spend money like that because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And anyway, the boundary being nebulous was to this point where I was like, I was talking to a coworker and he said, maybe you should go Dutch or something like that because you're spending a whole lot of money, but you're not really finding the girlfriend that you want. And I'm like, yeah, you're right about that. I'm gonna go Dutch. And so I I said to the next person, let's go, well, Dutch. You pay yours and I'll pay mine. And she was like, no way. And like, we're gonna go, you're gonna pay. And I'm like, oh, man, what if I lose this person? I better I better pay for the whole thing. So we went to kind of like a fast casual kind of place. And I pay for I told them, essentially, I'm trying to save money. Please don't spend a lot of money. Um, and they were like, I'm gonna get the most expensive thing on the menu. I'm like, "Oh, that's a joke. I know, look at your face." I'm like, that was a joke, right? I thought it was a joke because I'm autistic and I guess I don't understand humor. But she was very serious. It's fast casual place. And so she got the salmon, which was the most expensive thing in the menu. And I got mad and I told the waitress, no, don't get her order. She's gonna get something else. And long setup, but that's what I thought a boundary was in that moment when you get so mad that it's time to tell people no. I didn't tell her no when she wanted to go to a fancier restaurant. Didn't tell her no when she wanted to when not want to pay. Like, so I thought that was the point when you set boundaries. And it's not really. It's way before then. It's actually when I declared that I wanted to go half and half and they said no. Like I made the kind of, hey, this is the thing I want to do for me. Let's go half and half. And as soon as they said no, I crumbled. It's like, please, I don't want to be alone forever. Like I was gonna find the one. I don't know. But
But
I don't think
you
that was
wouldn't
the
want to
one.
spend forever with that one.
Yeah, I don't
right.
think that was the one you wanted. Uh,
No.
I have a saying about boundaries that I like to use in my coaching from time to time, which is that you know, a boundary is, uh, it can be as simple as an agreement. That's like a simple boundary.
Mm,
An agreement is kind of putting a responsibility on another party to hold that boundary and agree to hold that boundary. A better boundary is one that you hold yourself with authority and, not like aggressiveness, but assertiveness.
hmm
Um, and then an even better boundary is a boundary that keeps itself without you. Right. The
mm,
block button on social media is a good example of this. It like once you put it in place, it's just like doing its job for you and it doesn't need any further attention, that sort of thing. And
mm,
so, the best boundaries keep themselves. Good boundaries are ones that you keep with your own authority, and weaker boundaries are the ones where you're relying on somebody else to respect it. Your story kind of reminds me of a moment where you had that opportunity you recognized to have asserted the boundary. You didn't, and then it kind of got tested, uh, until
yeah.
you were ultimately like, to war, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
feudal lord, understanding of boundaries at a certain metaphysical level.
hmm Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know I didn't know how to I didn't notice until, some years later when I went back and reflected and did my own work that I could have said that there was an opportunity to notice the boundaries. But that was a lesson for today or for my future self. And to the point of boundaries being hard and the sense of self-worth that I had, I believed for many years after that I messed up when I set that boundary. So I can understand when my clients come to me and they say, I feel guilty for setting boundaries. I felt like I messed up. And if I had just paid for the salmon, if I had just been cool about it, then I would have met the love of my life. I know I relate to my client. Elena, Elena.
No, not that one. Not good enough
No.
for you. No, no. I said no.
Okay, so and a little more to that, keeping that mindset, I've kept it for so many years. Like, oh yeah, I'm the one that's messed up. And so I was dating somebody who kind of demanded that I jump through hoops. Now that I look back at it, I just thought that's what relationships were. You're kind of supposed to just follow along with what your partner says to do, especially as a guy in a relationship. I didn't have really great models of what coupled relationships look like either. And so I just kind of watched TV, and what TV showed was that. So, so yeah, this partner, to give you an idea of the sense of lack of boundaries and why I'm so passionate about setting them today and being kind with them, is that this person was like, I don't like where they, they like, I don't like where we're living. So let's move. And I moved. I mean, I just did. And then they were like, I think you need a car. I'm like, okay, I bought a car. It's not like I had money like that either. It's just like I had just no sense of self and understanding. And this is what was going to make the relationship work. And I didn't want to ever be alone because it sucked. But I'm it's like, oh, um, yeah, this was worse. Like being, they were never satisfied with anything that I could possibly do. And I had no sense of self, no boundaries. And so they would take, take, take. And I'm like, oh, that sucks that's awful. It doesn't feel good that you're taking from me. But this is where relationships are, and I don't know what else to do. And then they told me I need to go to therapy. That was the same person. If my clients, if you ever come, if they come to me and they say, you'll never understand, I just feel so guilty about setting boundaries. Yeah, I bought a car, and because I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, it's not like I had a ton of money either. It's just hard to, and there's no shame in it. It's just something to learn, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Boundaries are a difficult lesson to learn,
yeah,
especially when the examples that you grew up with were not prime examples of the behavior as should be modeled.
yeah. I think, yeah, I think that the boundaries too, like my parents, I don't think they know. They didn't know to teach me, and so that's unfortunate. And I didn't see anything else to learn. And now to think, yeah, I think that's all I want to go with there because I have a fondness for how much they tried, but I also know my experience, so
Yeah, that's interesting. Now that you mention that, I have to say that growing up, the forms of boundaries that I had modeled for me was my mom who would, you know, not make boundaries for so long that everything would end in the explosive, no, don't let her have the salmon kind of situation.
yeah.
And yeah, and that's what
Oh,
I would have seen.
hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking about my family now. I'm like, yeah, I think
Yeah, it's,
probably
you gotta
that's
think.
probably what I experienced because that's what I did. So it's probably the
Yeah.
thing. It's some oh,
I'm kind of hearing it as well, so it might be there, might have been there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm hearing that you're kind of familiar with this type of um, pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Familiarity comes from family first
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
friends second, right? So, it's like friends, family, friends, and then like school and work. That's what creates your familiarity, the things that you do the most often.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So what happens if you're alone most of the time? Like,
Mm. Then you'll be familiar with loneliness.
I am
That's
definitely.
that's a stand-in for family in that situation, right?
Hmm. I suppose like you would get to know yourself a little better if you tried new things, or not you, but one who spends time alone, like me. He would get they would if they tried new things and went new places, they would get to know themselves a little more rather than being alone and not talking to people.
Hmm.
And I found this out because I thought that the key was to spend a lot of time alone. I like spending time alone. Like being in my head is it's a fun place to be. And when I go outside, I get in my head. It's like get in my head. It's like getting into a car. It's like, where are we going? I'm thinking about stuff. But there's an important time where it's important to talk to people. And so I've made a really concerted effort, especially at the end of last year or at the beginning of this year, I think, more at the beginning of this year, to talk to people, like my neighbors and so forth, say hello to the people I see on the street, get outside, like go to places, because I need to practice my boundaries.
Gives you places to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
places do that. As long as I think it might be fun, or even going for a walk. Like I can't seem to do anything without a purpose. I struggle with if it doesn't have a purpose for me to do, then I can't just do it. I have to manufacture a purpose. So just get outside to get outside. No. Mm-mm. I'm getting outside to go for a walk, and the walk is supposed to be relaxing, or healing, or it's to think an idea through. But to go outside, just to go outside, I can't really do that. So, as long as I have a purpose to it, I can get myself outside. Then get myself to do something, go somewhere, talk to people, have some fun. And if I can't really, if I go to a place that I think that I might not like, I'll design an experiment to talk to someone, like, well, experiment, or maybe like give myself a goal, a purpose. Like if I'm going to go to this party and I really like the host, but I don't know if I'm gonna like the vibe. All right, you're gonna go to this party because you like the host, but you're not gonna be there because you're not gonna be there as a favor to them. You're gonna do something for yourself. And so my fun thing to do is just like, well, I'm gonna talk to this person about um uh the gems that I have collected.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just find a person to talk to about that, see what happens. That's gonna be my goal, my mission. And it's gonna be fun to try and complete that. And
We're
that's it.
all
That is fun.
three no further than 5 feet from the nearest like rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's
Send
like
yourself on little quests.
It's
I've
like
got
it.
on the shelf
Right
behind
over
me
there.
at least. So Elena's I think are
Nice.
on the desk.
I
So
love those
yeah,
things.
no, we've got plenty of crystals around, and this is the
Yeah.
Fairly Magical podcast after all.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, are we gonna show off our crystals? No?
You
Okay.
don't have to. No, we could maybe
Uh,
Yes, crystals.
I love it.
that
It's a
one's amazing.
quartz. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a clear quartz.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I've got a whole bunch. My favorite actually is this little like the worry stones. It's a smooth stone with like a divot on one
Mm,
side to rub your thumb,
yeah.
which I love these as a sensory thing. The
Sensory
weight
thing.
and the fact that it's cold and then it warms up. Oh, I love these. But it's Labradorite.
Oh, I love labradorite.
I don't know if the
I like the
light's
way
gonna
it
pick it
like
up, but it's
glistens.
really pretty.
I can imagine
Yeah,
what it
it's
looks
got like
like.
blue sparkles in it. Yeah,
I like opal
Love
too.
I
I
labradorites.
like I like opal for
opal
that
so
very kind of thing. Opal and onyx. Well, yeah, it's onyx,
bright.
black onyx, where it's like, or maybe it's
Yeah.
black opal or something, because it's dark and it has, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like opal but black. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
And then there's obsidian, which is the volcanic glass that's
obsidian.
also black.
Yes.
yeah. Well,
It,
yeah, I have an obsidian pyramid.
Oh,
what?
what? Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. That's cool.
I
That's
love
I'm
it.
UN.
yeah,
It's just on my
because
desk.
it's so hard to it's I mean it's glass, so it's so hard to
Yeah,
work with. Wow, you get a pyramid because usually it's like I'm super into super into this.
They
yeah.
probably
No,
had to
it's
mold
super
that.
cool. It's super cool. Oh, and I have an engraved piece of selenite. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I can see
Selenite's
it.
always so bright, but yeah, it's got like a little moon on it.
Oh, I want to reach
Go
for
ahead.
some. I want.
Go ahead.
Rock show, rock show, rock show.
I have a rainbow quartz.
Ooh.
It's when it's yeah. I went to a rock show and like I think it was somewhere in I can't remember St. Louis or something around Louisiana, somewhat not Louisiana, but St. Louis. Drove out there to go to a rock show, and it was really amazing. I live in Chicago, so I don't know how many hours, maybe a 3 hour drive or something like that. But it was fabulous, and there were so many things that I wanted to buy, and I think it's it was a problem for a moment buying so many.
Yeah.
I had to slow down there. I had to get I had to get rid of or I had to rehome them, not just get rid of them, but they carry some nice energy, so I want to make sure good people get them. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so I had to stop my collection, but I have enough to feel okay. Yeah.
Your crystal collection looks shiny and costly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I
Oh,
went to I also went to Austin, Texas, and there's a train that goes from Austin to Chicago. And so instead of taking a flight there, I took the train because I knew that I was going to go to to the largest rock quarry in the state, like the gemstone store, whatever, gemstone store in the state.
easier to travel with the weight by train, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't going to charge me extra fees. So I'm like,
Mhm.
buddy, yeah, it's like
Wheels and rails, wheels and rails.
wheels and rails obsessions.
Europe knows what's up. I'm
Oh,
serious. Trains
yes.
are trains are awesome for like
Oh my God.
mass transit purposes, and we don't have nearly that kind of benefit in North America to
No,
to
so
our
much better over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I follow some creators that talk about European trains a lot.
Oh yeah.
I do, yeah. That's one of my various fascinations is, keeping up with technology in the form of people that are like, why would you reinvent trains? Is one of the main video types that this creator makes. I can maybe uh, it's Adam something on YouTube if anybody's curious what I'm talking about.
Okay.
He's like a Hungarian maybe creator that talks about the problems with technology trying to reinvent things like trains.
Oh, like I I struggle to wrap my head around that statement too.
Yep,
Reinvent
don't
things
worry
like
about it.
trains. Okay. Thank you.
So
It's released me
basic,
from that thought.
basically, all right. Tech bros have this fascination with pods to do blank with, um, pods to travel on rails with, and it's like you're reinventing trains, man. Like
Oh,
we have that. It's called a train, um, and so like that's kind of what half of the videos on that channel are. Is like we have this trains,
yeah.
but it's
When
also
are we
like
gonna get
pods
the
to live
hoverboard?
in.
Like
Yeah.
The
when are we
hoverboard.
gonna get the hoverboard and all those other things that
Yeah,
we
flying
Yeah.
cars, man.
yeah, the Jetsons were supposed to be here already. We were supposed to get in our flying cars.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
I'm
we're way
I'm a high
past
school
that.
class of 2005. Okay, so we were like that age that is like timed with one of the Back to the Future moments in the
yeah.
future, and so we were like, it's 2005. Where is my flying car? Right? I remember that, and I was just like 18, and I'm 39 now.
Yeah.
So, you know, like
Yep.
it's where is my hoverboard? Where is my flying car?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Nowhere to be
can
found.
we actually advance technology here? I want I don't know, Futurama level stuff. Well, Futurama
Exactly.
That's
is
another
like
thousand
3,000.
years
It's
ahead. Yeah,
another
yeah.
1,000 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
we'd have to what is like no wait, 3,000. So we've got 75
Yeah, year
years ish.
3000. He
30
gets Fry gets frozen in the pilot from 1999 New Year's to third 2999 New Year's. He gets frozen exactly 1,000 years to New Year's
Mm.
2999, and it was
Okay.
a pilot in the year 1999, I believe, or right after. So
Mm.
it's kind of like timed with that in
Yeah.
history. Futurama is so fascinating, and I love it.
Yeah, there's some themes. I just believe that in so many of these TV shows, there's so many themes of like real time, and I think the series finale was one that I definitely cried at. Um, but it's just the idea that there's so much within it if you just kind of sit with it and see some of these concepts that
Yeah.
the creators put into it.
Yeah. It's a smart show. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it
And
is.
is it running again? It's on like Hulu or something now, or something like that.
And are you thinking of King of the Hill? King of the Hill's back.
Oh yeah,
There's
Yeah,
that's
that's
the one that
back.
got rebooted.
that's back.
That's
Yeah.
the one that got
I
rebooted.
enjoyed King of the Hill when I was when its first seasons when it was running. I
Mm.
enjoyed it, and I actually watched the first season of the new stuff. I think they call it season 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to keep the series running. Like, oh, Bobby Hill's older now. Like, I thought it was interesting, and as far as they did well with the characters and the storyline, and it's kind of gives a nice feeling to see um something from the past, but reflected in me today. So, because I grew up,
Mm.
and so did Bobby. All right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't we all?
we
I grew
grow
a
up.
beard, like really grew a beard. I had like facial hair before, but now I like have a beard. There's a difference.
Oh, yeah, the beard. That's
Yeah,
because you said
beard.
it like the
Right.
beard.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
Because
wasn't
it's a
always
long
like this.
beard.
It is a lot, yeah. And so
I am
Fantastic.
I'm super curious
thanks.
about how long it is.
My beard,
Yeah.
it like if I really like pull the
Oh,
curls down, it goes
I
down to like my
see.
chest. Yeah.
Whoa.
But it's curly, so it all like springs up.
Like springs up. Mm,
Hmm. All my
yeah.
hair is pretty curly, actually.
Like,
More than you think. More than you think, maybe. Yeah.
I had tried to get my beard to do a little bit. I had like some like beard oil and a little brush, and I have little obsessions every once in a while, and I would just be like
mhm.
just brushing, trying to get it to grow. And then I I think after a couple of weeks of it, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And and it's gonna do what it does. Like it doesn't grow super fast, so it does what it does. And besides, it's okay.
It looks very very profesh the way you've got
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Bash. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Very
That's
cleaned up.
hidden
Mhm.
behind the
It's
mic
great.
right here.
Yeah. I'm aiming for feral. That's the thing. I'm actually like
Oh,
aiming for that.
oh.
Like,
Okay.
yeah. So I think that's been some good yapping for today. What do you guys think? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up here?
Uh, I actually talk about the Social Connection Summit. So we
Yeah,
brought this
please go
up a
ahead,
little
plug.
before. Yeah, Social Connection Summit is a 2-day summit for late identified or suspecting neurodivergent professionals who want to learn more about how their brains work. And they also want to build connections with others who think like them. I think that's the key piece is that I'm 43 and I just don't know what I don't know. And discovering that I could even be autistic it was mind blowing to me. And I think it started maybe 2 years ago. And then I struggled to assume any kind of identity with it because autism doesn't look like me, but it's essentially like black, queer. It doesn't, I didn't think that that was and I don't say there's like, uh, I'm able to function a little and kind of hide and mask in society. And it's like, okay, so I'm just weird. I'm not autistic. And then I found out, oh yeah, I am. And it's this whole process of understanding that, okay, this is what autism looks like for me. And then also there's some cultural and um biological, because I'm also trans, levels to it, and body changes for anybody after a certain age, your hormones are going to change. And so we're finding out now that the science shows that neurodivergent adults and their bodies change and their brains change a little differently. They are different. And there's so much information to know, and no one's really saying, here's exactly what you need to know to get through life. Like, here are the key pieces that you might want to check on. You have to happenstance. You have to scroll on TikTok like I did. Scroll on TikTok and find like, oh, that sounds like me. Maybe I need to look into this. And so the Social Connection Summit is about bringing experts and professionals who live the experience, but also research the experience to bring information to those who know that they think differently, but they might not know what they don't know. They might not know that they have a dopamine deficit and that's why they can't pay attention. That's why it's a struggle to create a task and routine. Meanwhile, they're shaming themselves, thinking, "Yeah, I know I have ADHD, but I just can't make things work. Shame on me." And it's like, well, there's probably a biological component that you're missing that if you knew about, then you could fix that or find support for it. And you wouldn't have to shame yourself anymore. You could feel more comfortable. And also, you'd want to be with people who understood that. Like you have an ADHD brain and time blindness exists for you. Or, you may have low energy levels and you may not want to go out to meet people often, or you may want to schedule your phone calls like I always do. I always want somebody to schedule a call with me. Um, I don't really want anybody to call. Um,
Don't just call me. The
yeah.
same goes to for me. Do not just call me.
They'll just call me. It's like, please send me a text message and then I'll get to you. If the text message says call me, then okay, but you did text me first and I did not have to pull my attention away from what I was doing to come see you. Like I picked up the phone, I saw it. Not My phone's always on silent too. I'm like
It
it just seems
is
like I
not
don't want to
allowed to
talk to
make
people.
noise. Mm-mm.
No, your phone's not allowed to make noise.
Mm-mm.
No. I
Nope.
discovered do not disturb and I put my phone on, it's just on all the time.
My phone has a
Yeah.
Yeah.
great feature. If I put it face down, it's do not disturb. If it's face up, it's regular mode.
That's cool. I
What?
like
Moto.
Yeah.
that.
How do I do that?
Moto. I
Is
don't
there
know.
an
It's a
app?
Moto feature. You can look for the
Oh,
Moto like apps and see if
Moto.
they can run on
Oh,
your phone, but I think it's part of my phone, my Moto
yeah,
oh,
phone.
okay.
maybe. Oh, okay.
So
I have a Pixel. Oh,
yeah, I it didn't my Pixel didn't do it when I had a Pixel before. So
Oh,
I
I'm so
actually
jealous.
it was a very affordable, like cost effective phone to get to. So,
oh,
Moto
cool.
seems to have this in their operating system. It helps me.
Nice.
It's really, really helpful because if my phone does start
Oh,
making noise, I just turn it over. Right? Then I just have a really quick thing to do.
yeah.
Wow, I like that. I I
That's so
want to
super
get it.
cool.
Yeah.
There
Um,
might also be other apps that do this, like Do Not Disturb with like face down, Do Not Disturb sort of feature might be a standalone app
Mhm.
that others make if it's not available, like just from the App Store. From Moto might make it available. I don't know, but
if it's not immediately available to me by touching a few buttons on my phone, I'm gonna be a I've turned into a curmudgeon. I'm turning into my parents who are like, I don't want to do technology. Like, please.
Kids these
we're
days on
all
their
getting
phones.
burned out by it a little bit.
I think so. I think so. Just like there was an iPhone update a couple of months ago on my phone, or maybe it was glass or something, but it's some months ago. And now my icons wiggle and they move to grab my attention, but I'm not trying to find them. I find that so annoying. I just want to
It's like
Nope,
that
look at my
peripheral
phone.
nope, I don't
vision
like
test
that.
at the eye
Yeah,
doctor, where
yeah,
like the wiggly lines in this like side of the
yeah. It's
uh,
like,
it's like a little like wiggles over here,
Yeah.
wiggles over there.
yeah. It's like, oh no, what are you doing to me? Like destroying my attention.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
ADHD
Oh,
nightmare what
no,
you're
I don't like
describing,
that.
or
Yeah.
ADHD for that. Either way, right? Any of the DHDs, uh,
DHDs. Yeah.
whichever DHD you fall into, or DD, yeah, but not
Mm.
Maybe, yeah.
necessarily the driver that we alluded to. Don't abuse your friends for rides. That's what Uber and Lyft are for. We talked about that
Not
earlier about like not you two, but like people. Don't abuse your friends to get a ride. Get a
okay.
Lyft, get an Uber,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. This, I think it's wisdom to set those expectations or boundaries with yourself. Hold yourself accountable and do not abuse your friends for rides.
That's one of the big morals of the story today, I think.
Solid advice.
Yes.
Let that
So,
regenerate you, right? Let that calm you and bring healing.
yes. So I had mentioned the Social Connection Summit and I didn't give a um website. Look at
Oh
me.
yeah,
And the website, so socialconnectionsummit.com.
yeah.
Don't
And we'll make sure
forget.
it's linked in the video description, and I'll
Yes.
put a thing. It'll
Yeah.
be here or there
Here.
or maybe here. And so
Wherever.
it'll be
And
somewhere.
yes, so
I might actually put it where my finger's pointed every
and just
time.
keep moving around. Just
If I, yeah.
A little pong ball.
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
um it's happening September 23rd and September 24th. So wherever it is on the screen, click it. I think it's clickable. It might be.
Yeah, I'll make the clickable kind on YouTube too. I'll do
Ah,
that.
it's cool.
There'll be like text, there'll be clickables, there'll be buttons, there'll be a thing at the end of the video, all that. I'm going to do all that.
Oh, we're gonna do it big.
Mhm.
Betty,
Oh,
fireworks. Yeah. It's
yeah.
our glitter. It's magic.
hang on. Yeah,
Marching
I got,
band.
I got things for that. This.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the
I think
effect
that
we
captures in
needed.
the video.
I love
Um,
it.
Yay.
right. Anyway, I'm Justin the Wizard, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, and I've been here today with Coach Lee Hopkins. Coach, you want to give your sign off, and then we'll pass it over to Elena.
Yes, I am Coach Lee, social coach for ADHD folks. If you get stuck in your head and you want to connect, I'm here to help with that. You can find me at patternsofpossibility.com and also socialconnectionsummit.com.
And I'm Elena Lunt. I've been your chaos coordinator here today on the Fairly Magical podcast. And I want you to remember that it's trash can, not trash can't. And I have a raccoon on my top, he says all oopsies, no daisies. And I like to imagine that it's Jimothy because he's my entire personality now.
We stand Jimothy on this
Yes,
podcast. I'll
yes.
make sure to, if you don't know what
Jimothy
Jimothy
Stan
is, there'll
account.
be a little bit, there's Jimothy here, there, and we're going to put Jimothy everywhere. So many Jimothys.
Give me all the Jimothys.
Yes.
Oh, the Jimothys.
You heard about Jimothy, Coach Lee? You should hear
No.
about Jimothy. And we'll talk.
I know of the name.
We'll
I've
talk
seen
about
it
it
written
after I
somewhere,
close
but
this.
okay.
See y'all.
We have so many things to show you.